Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm Artem. I'm a CTO and one of the co-founders of Billie. And today we are going to talk here about building and leading engineering teams for startups. And actually not only engineering teams, the principles which we'll see here, they're also valid for other roles. So it doesn't matter whether it's engineering or sales or marketing department, it's for everyone. So a couple of words about myself and about Billie first. So as I said, I'm a CTO and co-founder of Billie, and Billie is actually the family. Because Billie is a startup which was founded by 7 people. We used to work together in a previous company, and then this company has been sold. And we sat together thinking about what can we do now. And we shared some ideas, and in the end we've chosen the idea of the FinTech platform, which is focused on financing of the working capital. So that's what we do. And the working capital is usually a capital which small and medium-sized businesses use to finance their job. So they pay salaries, they pay to suppliers, they buy materials, and that's what's called working capital. And we have a couple of products at the moment. So one of them is the one which you can see on our website, and another one is a purely API-based product, which is an API for the e-commerce platforms which they can use to integrate with our systems. So when I said that Billie is a family and it was founded by 7 people, it's actually true, because we when we left our previous company, we had a couple of months to think about the ideas and to build the first initial team. We spent this time sitting together in coffee places, in someone's apartments, and it was a top secret, I would say. No one knew about what we've been doing, and we even called each other Oceans 12, even if we were 7. And the first name of the company was Ocean 12 GmbH, and this was our first domain name, even before we came with the idea of calling the company Billie. So for me, what was the main issue is that I have a bit more than 1 month to build the engineering team, which could be hard, as we all know, in Berlin especially, if you want to hire really good developers and QAs. And I was actually very lucky, because when I'm thinking about it now, it looked like almost everyone I kept in my mind and almost everyone whom I interviewed in the end joined the company. And it looks strange, because imagine if a person whom you barely know comes to you and says all these future success, bright stories about a cool startup which you have to join, and you have no chance to escape. You shouldn't go back to your Rocket Internet or any other company which is already stable. You should join our startup right now. And I was lucky that people were convinced, and one of them is even here. So Nikolai is one of our first employees, who was our backend developer, and now he's our solution architect. So he was even promoted, and he's still with us, as same as anyone else who was our first employees. And since the beginning of Billie, only maybe 5 people maximum left, and we are 52 now. So yes, coming back to the original topic, why am I talking about building teams, and especially about the professional American sport? So we all, as entrepreneurs, as team leaders, as managers, we all struggle with such things like team building, hiring of people, culture, personal growth of our team members. And sometimes we are looking for solutions and best practices from the big players. And I'm trying to, every time when I have this problem, I'm trying to, let's say, make an area and a scope where I can search for a bit wider than the usual one. For example, my father, he's a head of engineering department on a factory. And this factory produces the electronic devices. And they design it, they develop it there, they produce it there. So it's the full stack factory. And of course, they are not modern. They don't use Scrum, they don't use Kanban. They are really old school factory. And sometimes when I have these kinds of problems, I'm thinking, how would my father solve it? Or how would other people on the factory solve it? Because this business, these kinds of businesses, they exist already ages. And of course, someone already struggled, someone already faced this problem. Maybe they have a solution. And while doing this, I came up to the interesting point that the professional sport, especially the American professional sport, and especially the National Hockey League, has kind of similar team building approach as we have in startups. And since I'm a fan of National Hockey League, I started to dig deeper. And I'm not kind of a fan who has a favorite team, and I'm not super interested who is gonna win the next Stanley Cup. But what's more interesting for me is how it works as a business. Because it's business, it's a profitable business, and this business exists already almost 100 years. So now we will look at the learnings which I found there and which I'm using in my daily job at Billie. And we will especially focus on 3 aspects: team building / hiring, personal growth, and culture. So what is it which makes the American sport and especially the National Hockey League that special? The first thing is the salary cap. So the salary cap is a very interesting limit which does not exist in European sport at all. So the salary cap simply means that if you summarize all the salaries of your players, it should not be higher than a certain limit, which is of course makes, it's a big game changer because it makes the management work completely different. You can't just go to any random player, give all the money you have, and then get this player. So you need to start thinking a bit smarter, and you need not just look for best players, but you need to look for the best quality and salary match. So the next thing is you cannot buy players. You cannot come to another club and sign a players, pay to this club in real money and get this. So it's pretty much the same as we have in startups. You cannot go to the startup which sits next to you, pay them and get one of their developers. So the clubs can they can only do 2 things. They can only sign already available players who are out of contracts, or they can do trades between each other. So it looks also a bit similar because we can sign people, and in startups we can sign people who are already available, or we can offer better contracts to someone who wants to leave their current companies. So the 4th thing is the clubs in the US, they don't have young academies, like for example the football clubs in Europe. So they cannot grow their own players. And what they can only do, they can draft players who reach this certain age. And this is pretty much as we do in startups as well. So we cannot go to school and let's say teach some young developers, and then afterwards when they finish, they join us. Sometimes there are some attempts to do this, but it's not quite common yet. And of course, this is the point which makes many things different. So over time, if players play better, they want more. They want more salaries, they want better terms. But since we have a salary cap, this makes it's really difficult to win the cup. So this means we have a very limited time to win a cup with the current team which we have. And this is pretty much the valid point for the startups as well. So for startups, the resources are limited, the salaries are limited, and we need to deliver the end product, the end working product as fast as possible. Otherwise, at some point in time, people will want more. And if we are not ready, if we didn't pass the enough financing rounds, or even if we didn't reach the certain level of profit, we will just lose these people. So, talking about hirings. This is the traditional ice hockey rink. And this is how fans want to see their teams. So the ice hockey team, 6 players, the superstar forward, number 1. So it would be great to have the superstar forward here as well. And here another one. And 2 superstar defenders and 1 superstar goalie. So that's how fans believe the winning team should look like. And it's pretty much the same kind of view which is common for medium-sized and bigger companies when they can simply hire talents and afterwards define what to do with these people. But it's not a startup approach, of course, because in startups we are limited in terms of resources, and we have a limited number of limited amount of time to deliver. So that's why we, as managers or team leads, should behave differently, and we should see our teams as same as the ice hockey team managers see it. So the first thing, we need a stable number 1 goalie. That's for sure, because the goalkeeper is the last line of defense. And if you look at the engineering team, this is our QAs. So QAs are the last line of defense which can find a bug or a problem before it goes to production. In addition to it, we need the second goalie, who is young, probably, or ambitious enough to grow, because the stable goalie number 1 simply physically cannot play the entire season. So there should be someone who can do a backup for, 20, 30 games per season. And in our case, it's the same. If we have QA, we need a backup, because QAs will have holidays, sicknesses, and other stuff. So the team there should be someone who can take care of this role if the main last line of defense is on holidays. So then we need this old hand body defender, someone who is really experienced, and this could be our backend developer, someone with a great experience in the backend in different languages, different technologies, someone who brings stability to the team. And working together with him, there could be a young rookie for the future, a junior or even an intern, so someone who can learn later and someone who will grow in our team. Here, it's quite common approach nowadays in the ice hockey, and the center forward is someone who can play on both sides of the rink. So playing as a forward and at the same time as a defender, helping the actual defenders. And if you think about our forwards as about our front-end developers, it could be someone who can also do some backend. It's not necessary to do the backend job, but it's important to understand this in order to bind front-end and backend together. Here, we need the scorer, so someone should actually score in this team. And in our case, it could be a rockstar developer or a developer who develops very fast with a really decent quality. And the last member of our NHL team, if you talk about ice hockey, is the Russian. So since I'm the Russian, I can do these jokes. And it's quite common that the right wings and left wings players are very good in Russia, as same as goalkeepers. We always have problems with the defenders and the center forwards, but these guys are really good. And the managers, of course, the managers know about this. So that's how the first 5 of our team will look like. If we multiply it by 4, we will get the complete ice hockey team. And if you multiply it by 4, in our case, in the engineering case, we will have 4 agile teams which work on different products or different parts of our product. And that's pretty much the situation which I was when I was building my Billie team. First of all, I defined the roles which are the most important for me right now. So my last line was of defense was, as I said, QA. It's for sure we need even not QA, but test automation person, someone who can write stable tests, but at the same time do manual QA before we launch the product. Then the defense was my DevOps. I decided to hire a DevOps since the beginning, because in the end it's a financial product. We should be really strict regarding security, regarding precise calculations, and we need a stable infrastructure. So it's better to have someone from the day one who can work on it. And then I also hired 2 backend engineers to build the backend since the beginning, since the day one. And I didn't hire any front-end engineer, because actually as startups, it's a really rare case that we need a front-end engineer since the beginning, because usually front-end engineers need some backend to work with. And before we get the first backend in our system, some time will pass, because we need to sit together, define how the database will look like, define what kind of technologies we will use, and all that stuff. So since I had a really limited time, I decided not to spend it to hiring the front-end engineer and wait for some time. So here's another example of this roles separation. That's the real situation which we currently have at Billie. So let's imagine we need to hire a new backend engineer. And we have 2 different teams, team platform and team payments. The team platform is responsible for our main product, for our main website, Billie.io. And the team payments is responsible for the entire payments for the entire system. So what they do, they simply focus on money movement between different accounts of customers. And even if the role is called backend engineer, in those 2 teams, it's completely different. It's 2 completely different roles. So in team platform, they have very intensive releases. So they do releases 2, 3, 4 times per week. Sometimes they release small features, sometimes big ones. In team payments, it's different. It's always massive releases with big features. So in team payments, in team platform, sorry, they have UI. In team payments, they have purely API. There is no user interface at all. In team platform, they have a really wide scope of tasks. This could be a backend, back office. So this could be something related to front end. It's really different scope of tasks, and you can switch between them. In team payments, it's different. It's just numbers, numbers, and numbers every day. So all of this, and you can also imagine like the mistakes which we do in those 2 teams can have different impacts. If we broke something on the front end, our customers won't be able to click on some buttons right now until we fix it. If we make a mistake on team payments, so something will be really wrong with the customer's money, and this is a completely different scope of issue, and it's completely different level of responsibility. And that's what we make transparent to our candidates as well during the interviews. We clearly explain them what would be their role in this team. And it's, according to my experience when I was working as a developer, it was a very rare case that the people who hired me were able to clearly explain me what I will be actually doing in this company. And that's what we are trying to avoid, and I think that's the good practice. So, as a conclusion about hiring, what we can learn as the key points from the professional sport and from Billie as well. So, the first thing, do cherry picking instead of hiring. Clearly understand what kind of people you need for certain roles and look for such people. Hire one for others. So this means like if you have, let's say, 6 developers in your team and you need the seventh one. Think about what can this person bring to already existing developers. How will they work together? And this is what's called chemistry in the world of the professional sport. And to simply explain it, it's like if you have 2 different players in your team, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses, but if they play together, anything could become different. If, let's say, you have one molecule of hydrogen and another molecule of oxygen, then you take 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 molecule of oxygen, combine them together, what do we get? Water. So it's completely different kind of entity, and that's what happens in the working environment as well. So the classical example, which I guess we all seen, is that when your office becomes too small for the growing team, and your engineering team needs to sit next to sales team. So the classical example, what we get is like complaints, decreasing of the productivity, and the problem which we need to solve. So that's what's called chemistry, and we need to always keep this in mind. So building a dynasty. So what dynasty means in the professional sport is a team which is able to win a few main competitions within a few years. And as we've seen, since there is a limited amount of time to win a cup, we need to really build a dynasty, meaning it should not be the same team, but the team where we can replace some people, and this team will still be as productive as it was in the beginning. So build a team not for yourself, but for the one who will come next to you. Because it's life, everything could happen, and we can leave the company, we can quit it to build next business, as Peter has just explained in his example. So what we need to do, we need to build teams, keeping in mind that it should not be dependent on ourselves. It should be able to work with the same level of productivity if we quit and then someone else comes. And make the requirements super transparent. That's what that's the example which I already told you about the backend developers. Tell to candidates on the interview what do you expect from them. And the last point, but not least, is everything here is also valid for firing. If you fire people, everything is also important. Keep this in mind. So personal growth. Let's keep it a bit shorter. So does anyone know this guy? Who is that? Jaromir Jagr, exactly. That's one of the best players in the NHL on 90th, and he started his career when he was 18 years old, and he finished his career in NHL last year when he was 46. So, and this was only possible because he always had a good personal growth plan, and of course a diet and training culture, but he knew what he wanted to achieve year by year. And these are the key points which we can learn from the NHL if we want to help our team members growing. So the first thing is growth could be planned or spontaneous. This is a very simple phrase, but very often we don't think about it. So how it basically works is if we plan something, sitting together with a person that we want to achieve some KPIs after some time, this is what's called planned growth. But at the same time, probably this person wants to do something else, or he or she, they don't even know about it. And this is what's called spontaneous growth. And those two, they usually exist together. And spontaneous one is more likely to happen because this is what person wants. That's why our task as managers is to plan the spontaneous one. So we need to see in advance what will happen, what's the spontaneous one means. And it's hard, but we need to know our team members better in order to predict this. Yes. So, yes, the growth should be planned by both people, by ourselves and our team members. Before building a plan, we need to answer a question, why? I think that's a clear golden circle approach, why, what, how. And then if we answer this question, we put goals and helpers into the personal plans of people. So goals, it's what they want to achieve. Helpers is how they want to achieve it. And helpers could be different things. It could be learning new technologies, visiting conferences, making talks, writing blog posts, could be anything. So the plan, the personal growing plan, should not be built as in a stone. It should be really agile. If you see that something is not working, just change it. Just kill this part and forget about it. Probably it's not part of a spontaneous growth. And this is the interesting thing. Plans don't grow up alone, they grow up within the ecosystem. It's again, if you plan a personal growth of one of your team members, it's better to also have a look how this person will grow within the team, and will other team members grow together with this person. So the culture, the last one. So what is this? The locker room. And the locker room is actually a place where the team culture borns. So talking about the engineering and talking about startups, the locker room is our lunches or smoking area or informal events which team members do together. So this kind of culture is getting born in this locker room. So the rules of this, there are two different cultures. The first one, which we define as managers. And the second culture is the natural culture which borns in the locker room. It borns within the team. So the second one always exists, even if we don't call it like that or we don't know that this exists. That's why before launching the official culture of a team, look at the already existing one, which already exists within the team, even if it's not called like that. And only those two cultures together build a common culture which you can call your company culture. So this was the last point. And instead of a conclusion, I want to show you the picture which was there in the beginning of this presentation. So this is the team. The team is called Chicago Blackhawks. And this is a photo which was taken in 2015 after the winning of Stanley Cup. And the special moment about this is this was their third Stanley Cup within 5 years. So that's pretty much the dynasty which we've spoken about this. And this only happened because they had a great team with the great management. So thank you very much. And before we go to the questions, I want to share this link. This is our technical blog on Medium, which we have, our team has. And there are lots of interesting articles, not just technical ones. So please check.
I'm also going to send you the presentation so you can have it and have all the information there. Does anybody have a question?
Really? People can't hear me? You discussed two kinds of teams, a platform team versus a payments team. Can you explain a little bit about the logic behind that separation and maybe give some specific examples for the sort of tasks that would go to one team versus the other?
So the team platform is a cross-functional team. They have front-end developers, back-end developers, and QAs. And they are responsible for our factoring product. So they do the full customer-facing product. where our customers can upload their invoices and get financing. And afterwards, so what happens afterwards is the money movement between different bank accounts, between our account and accounts of our customers. And this is a separate service which is led by, there is a separate team which is responsible for that. And this money movement service is not just for the platform team, but also for the second product which we have, second customer-facing product, which I mentioned in the beginning. So if it's related to the money movement, to the moving of money between different accounts, or understanding which customer or which account the certain money belongs to, then this is a task which goes to payments team. If it's something related to the product itself, to something which we show to our customers, or some functionality which they can work with, so this goes to the team platform.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. So I would like to ask you about the role of management, because I haven't seen it in, on ICE. So it's like product management, or is it like a coach, or what do you think about it? Should it be in a game as well, or not?
Yeah, in our case, so if you look at the NHL, they have two people responsible for it. There is a general manager and there is a coach. And the general manager is responsible for hiring players, for building teams, and the coach is responsible for everything which is happening on the rink. So basically the tactics, strategy, and kind of physical trainings and all that stuff. So in our case, if you look at Billie, I could say that the general manager is myself, because I'm responsible for hiring people, for hiring engineers and QAs and DevOps for different teams. And coaches of these teams, I would say it's the product managers which each team has, because they work together as an agile teams. And if they have some needs, let's say some resources, then this is one of my responsibilities at the moment, to provide these resources.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned in the beginning that you were extremely successful in the beginning in hiring everyone you wanted to. Firstly, why do you think you were so successful? And secondly, where were you hiring them from? Were they through personal connections, or were you sourcing them from somewhere else?
So originally, like I hired four people. The DevOps person I knew personally. I worked with him already 8 years in different projects. And he was available at this time, so I was lucky to convince him to join us. Then one of the developers comes through the network. He was recommended by one of my former colleagues. The third developer I knew a little bit from Berlin already. So, and then he recommended me lead QA. So it was purely networks hiring. Now we use different sourcing channels. We use LinkedIn, we use headhunters, we look for people by ourselves, we also look for our networks. So it's much wider. And at the moment we don't have any sourcing person in the company, which is not good, because we are already big enough and it's getting harder and harder for us. So basically what we are doing now, we are looking for a sourcing person to help us with hiring people.
May I ask, how many are you right now?
52. That's the entire company, and the engineering department is 23, so almost half of the company. And if you add data, BI, data science, then it's more than half of the company. So we are really tech-driven company. Our operations department is 3 people.
Cool. Thanks a lot for the talk.
Thank you very much.